So here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news, and having a little bit of dialogue with those of you who were able to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you are listening somewhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ScrewTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. Please find me there. Need all the help I can get. ScrewTube hates this channel and they grind it up pretty bad. Also, you can find me on X, aka Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, and you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise specified. Naturally, I do read through as many comments as is reasonable. Now I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have said hello thus far. I see Donna Beaver is here. He says, she says, remember, thumbs up, like, and share. Again, please do. Helter, Dragon, Rodney, all the way from New Zealand, Cyberjack Sr., Brian is here. Glad you could make it today as we wait for some more people to pile in. Only one feline in the room today. For those of you who can see, that is Miss Kitty laying in the chair behind me, knocked out. Miss Kitty, everyone. No one else is available at the moment. They're all scattered throughout the house. Raccoon has joined us as we get ready to jump off into the realm of the ridiculous, which is the world that we are forced to live in. Life is not that hard, but people make it so. Make it so. As we get ready to jump off. This is something that I thought was interesting, and this isn't news per se, but this is something that I'm experiencing right now. As you know, there's an election coming up. We're getting close. We're getting close to what, 2 months in? 2 months into the election cycle, and David has joined us. Glad you could make it today. And I usually get tons and tons and tons of political mail. You can't get away from it, okay? I've done videos on it. I've done videos on the level of political mail I get, especially if it's a local election. I can't tell you how much crap I got from Raphael Warnock. All right. And I've done shorts on it. I've done videos on it. And ScrewTube has given me strikes for it, for misinformation. I'm standing here holding 30 pieces of mail that I've got this week from Raphael Warnock. I'm showing the cards and letters, and you're telling me it's misinformation. Fine. Screw you too. And I see Jane Spitfire has joined us, as well as John's Life. He says he got a new bit of kit incoming, pair of Nipex bolt cutters, 8-inch cut through fences, screws, nails, and locks. Interesting. I got political mail this week. Okay. I got 3 pieces of mail. They are Republican mailers. These are all pro-Trump mailers from the Republican Party. See, 10 policies proving Kamala Harris is failed, weak, and dangerously liberal. Trump got results. I got 3 cards. Okay. I got 3 cards in the mail from the Republican Party. This is the first time I have ever received mailers from the Republican Party. Ever. I kid you not. It's always Democrat stuff. Always. The emails, the text messages, the cards and letters and postcards in the mailbox. Whatever it is. People coming and knocking on your door. It's always the Democrat Party. Ever since I've been in Georgia, and when I was living in Illinois as well. I've never gotten Republican mail. This is the first time. And it's, I'm not all thrilled I got Republican mail because I don't want any political mail. And even when you opt out, you still get it. But I've never gotten any from the Republican Party before. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't know they did that at all. I didn't know they did that at all. And Jones Life says Warnock left a bunch of homeless to freeze to death and locked his church up. It's a very political church. That's a very political church. It was a political church even when Martin Luther King was when Martin Luther King was in charge of that church. It was a very political church, but it was different then. It was different then. But that just struck me as very interesting. I've never gotten anything in the mail from the Republican Party before. This is the first time ever. I never used to get anything like that when I lived in Kansas, but we did get it in Illinois, and we get it in Georgia, and it's always Democrat. Someone knocks on the door, it's either a Jehovah's Witness, somebody from ADT trying to sell you security cameras, or it's a Democrat trying to get you to register to vote. And it's like, if I want to register to vote, I know how to do it. Piss off. What are you doing way out here? Cyberjack Senior has joined us. Glad you could make it today. As we move on here, I just thought it was interesting again that they did this. I didn't even know that they sent mailers. Where are these? I guess it doesn't matter because this is a presidential race. I always like to look at where these mailers came from. And all three of these were mailed. They were mailed from Georgia. Okay. See, now the ones that were from Warnock, and this was the big issue that I was making, a big deal I was making when I got those mailers, and I did the video like a year ago or whatever, that Warnock's mailers, none of them were from Georgia. They were coming from Virginia. They were coming from Washington, D.C. They were coming from New Jersey. They were being mailed from everywhere. And I'm like, what happened to sourcing local communities? What happened to helping local Black businesses or whatever? I'm sure you could find a print shop in Georgia, maybe even one with Black ownership, Warnock, since that's your big deal, or so you claim. But you outsource to other states for your bullshit mailers. Yeah, I would love to be able to publicly call him out on that. And Jones says, I get it a lot in a rural county. No one knocking, though. Guess they're not going to do that in this neck of the woods. Yeah, I'm not that far removed from society, but it is like somewhat of a rural area where we are. As we move into the news here, and we jump off into Telegram, and I don't know a lot about Telegram. I don't use a lot of social media. It's bad enough I'm on YouTube. Okay, seriously. It's bad enough I'm on YouTube. Is this going to open up, or is Restream going to be wonky today? Here we go. PC Magazine article, Telegram CEO arrested in complicity investigation into narcotics and child pornography. I said it that on purpose. Its Court of Justice confirms to PC Magazine that Telegram CEO Pavel Durov has been arrested and taken into custody Saturday. Durov's arrest comes into the context of a judicial investigation that started on July 8th concerning a person unnamed, the court says. That person, presumably Durov, faces a dozen different charges, including a refusal to communicate with French law enforcement, complicity in gang transactions and criminal organization activity, complicity in the possession and distribution of child inappropriate photographs, shall we say, complicity in the distribution of narcotics, complicity in gang-related fraud, laundering, and potential violations around cryptography and encryption. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, according to the article. 6 of the charges are related to complicity, and 3 are related to alleged cryptography violations. In France, complicity in crime can be prosecuted. The statement suggests that criminal charges could be on the horizon regarding Telegram and the content distributed via the app. French President Emmanuel Macron tweeted today about seeing false information regarding France following the arrest of Pavel Durov. He argued that France is deeply committed to freedom of expression, bullshit, and communication to innovation and the spirit of entrepreneurship, and says Duroff's arrest is in no way a political decision. It is up to the judges to rule on the matter. Freedom of expression, communication, and innovation. France is a very socialist country. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you. Jane says, really, that's interesting. Warhawk mail is coming from other states. So what do you think of the rule on September 10th, the debate between Trump and Harris? What, the open mic rule? Is that what you're talking about? And Jones says they stopped using Telegram because it was a cesspit. I don't really know very much about Telegram. I've never used it. I don't know what it is. Like, only people talk about OnlyFans. I've never seen OnlyFans. I just know kind of what it is. I've never actually looked at anything from there. I've never seen TikTok either. I just kind of know what it is, But yeah, I guess, and that's the big news story of the day, that he is being held accountable for complicity. Now, what does that mean? It says Telegram and therefore Duroff are being accused of allegedly not taking enough action to prevent, moderate, and stop criminal uses of Telegram, as well as not cooperating with law enforcement requests. Al Jazeera reported that OFMIN, France's authority tackling violence against children, is investigating Duroff and Telegram over concerns of alleged fraud, drug trafficking, promotion of terrorism, organized crime, and cyberbullying on the platform. Telegram has also been repeatedly accused of hosting and not taking enough action to stop child abuse material and self-harm material from proliferating on the app. An OFMIN representative declined to comment. So he's not actually doing any of these things, Duroff. He's not actually doing any of these things necessarily, but they're holding him accountable for what other people are doing on the platform. What other people are doing on the platform. And Rodney says the powers that will be likely go after Signal next. And Helter said Telegram is not encrypted. The media will never stop with the encrypted messaging service is a lie. And Jane says, yes, open mic. What do you think? And then Monkey is here. I liked it better when they were able to close it so that people couldn't talk over each other, actually. I thought that was the one thing that they did in the debate with Biden and Trump that was useful. Was they carefully timed it, and they wouldn't, all right, we're closing you out, and then they would shut the mic, and that way that person couldn't talk over the other person and drag things out. And Harris wants to do away with that because she wants, quite frankly, probably wants to be all loud and ghetto like she was in the previous debates. Where, excuse me, I am talking, that kind of attitude. She wants to be all snippy and have attitude because she thinks it'll appeal to black voters. That's my opinion. And Trump doesn't want that because he doesn't want to have those kind of arguments, I guess, because I've heard that he's not happy about that. So, if he can either sit there and let himself get run over, or he can also run her over when she runs him over, and then the media will attack him for doing it, not her. You see the problem? Better that they just moderate it more closely. And Jones says TikTok is in the pocket of the CCP. And Dragon says, strange to hear Telegram doesn't cooperate with authorities. Well, it's France. Who gives a crap about France? Where's Inspector Clouseau when you need him? French authorities. Give me a break. Now, this is the kind of news that they want you to hear, and this is driving me nuts, actually. This whole scenario with Tim Walz, and I'm going to show this. You remember the man's man? I read that article Friday. Tim Walz shows that he's the man's man. He's the man's man. I'm a lumberjack, and I'm okay. Spencer says, I walk away from people like that. I say nothing and move on. Yeah, but he's stuck up there. He's stuck up there for what, 2-3 hours? Having to debate this woman? And Craig says UK and Europe is slipping into authoritarianism more each day. Yet until the normies wake up and believe their eyes, not the MSN, maybe then we can revert his decline. Be safe and follow patriots. Remember, Craig, though, you can wake the sheep up, but they're still sheep. Don't count on much. Don't count on much. But this is a Tim Waltz article. And I had read this, and I'm just like, give me a damn break. I'm tired of this kind of stuff being historic. This is The Atlantic magazine. Tim Waltz's understudy could get a history-making promotion. Peggy Flanagan. That's right, Peggy Flanagan. Minnesota's lieutenant governor could become the first Native American woman to serve as governor of any state in the country. And there she be, Peggy Flanagan, the native Indian, you know. There she is. All proud, isn't she now? So, oh my God. I want to know how Indian this woman is. Oh, I want to know how Indian this woman is. Oh my goodness. You know who she looks like? What is her name? I'm trying to remember that there's an actress that she reminds me of. Is it Sandra Bernhardt? Sandra Bernhardt, wasn't she? Yeah, Sandra Bernhardt, wasn't she on Roseanne? She was a comedian in the 80s, a really bad one. That's who she looks like to me. Sandra Bernhardt. Who remembers her? Who remembers Sandra Bernhardt? On Roseanne, I think she was married to Tom Arnold. So Peggy Flanagan is used to filling in for Tim Waltz because he doesn't do his damn job. He's too busy drinking horse semen. As the lieutenant governor, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. As the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, serving as an understudy in most of the gig. On Wednesday afternoon, that meant delivering the speech that Waltz was originally supposed to give in Chicago on the third day of the Democratic National Convention before President Biden abandoned his re-election campaign and set in motion events that upended the lives and possibly the political futures of both Waltz and Flanagan. Until his selection as Kamala Harris's running mate, Waltz had been scheduled to give remarks on a much smaller venue miles from the United Center stage at an event held by the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Center for American Progress Action Fund. You know what that is? That is a drain that sucks money. That's what that is. Now that the governor had a more important address to deliver, Flanagan stepped in. Our whole job is just be ready, she joked to an audience. So basically what they're telling you here, without dragging this out too much and making fun too much, is that because she's Native Indian, I guess, that's what they said. I don't know how Native Indian she is. I don't know what percentage. I'll tell you right now, if she's not at least 50%, her own people won't recognize her unless it suits them to do so. If it suits an Indian council to use her, they'll recognize her. But unless she's at least half Native Indians, they won't recognize her because they are they're very, very much dislike their Native counterparts. They don't get along. They're not one big happy family like the media would have you believe. And I learned a lot about that living in Kansas. The tribes do not get along. They pretend to for council purposes, but they can't stand each other. They really can't. It's a sad thing, especially, God forbid, you go to the casinos, they do their best. The tribal run casinos do their best to make sure everybody in there is from one tribe because otherwise they'll fight. That's how bad it is. But yeah, her own people won't recognize her unless she's at least a certain level of Indian. Dragon says that's not an accomplishment. Doesn't matter what her traits are being celebrated. What matters is if she can get the job done. Exactly my point. I'm so sick and tired of them saying everything is historic. If she shaves her head into a mohawk, oh, you know what? She'll go down in history as being the first lieutenant governor with a mohawk. Let's have a celebration. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I'm so tired of that. I'm so sick and tired of that sort of thing. So who is Sandra? I almost called her Sandra Bernhardt again. Who remembers Sandra Bernhardt? Sandra Bernhardt. Come on, let me look this up. Sandra Bernhardt. And she, a comedian from the 80s, a bad one. She was never funny. She was never that funny. I didn't think she was funny. That's my opinion. Maybe you liked Sandra Bernhardt. I don't know if she was a good actor either. She was a singer. And I think we actually have one of her albums. But I don't think it's very good. I don't think she was a very good singer, quite frankly. But we do have one of her albums, because we have a big record collection. I'm pretty sure I've got a Sandra Bernhardt record, and she's not good. There she is. That's who I think she looks like. Let me catch up a couple of comments. Jane says, I heard the African tribes do not like each other either. No, they still don't. They were not getting along when Europe, although, I'm not condoning anything Europe did, because they did not help. They did not help. But those tribes weren't getting along. They weren't all like peaceful and cooperative and one big happy family. That's a lie. And they still don't get along. Eastern Europe either. The groups of people from Eastern Europe, man, they just as soon exterminate each other. Tuck says Bernhardt was Bizarro McJagger. Okay. And Rodney says identity politics is pure poison. And wasn't Bernhardt known for being Madonna's friend? I don't remember that. I don't remember that. But that's who I think of when I look at her, Sandra Bernhardt. And I hadn't thought about that in a million years. So let's look up Peggy Flanagan on. You see the picture? Just her hair is straighter. Helter says she's taking a page from Harris. She's playing the switch to the other mixed race for convenience sake card. So Peggy Flanagan, born in 1979, American politician, community organizer, oh God, and Native American activist, serving as the 50th Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota since 2019. A member of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Oh, geez. Served in the Minnesota State House of Representatives from 2015 to 2019. Never heard of her until all of this came up. Now suddenly, oh, she Indian. There she is. Yeah, tell me that's not Sandra Bernhardt. Come on now. Tell me. Raccoon says she looks like she's wearing Groucho Marx glasses. No, that is her face. That is her face. And I'm not picking, I could sit here and pick on her looks, but that's not the point. But yeah, I think she looks like Sandra Bernhardt. What happened to my my article? There we go. She grew up in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, an inner ring suburb of Minneapolis, but she's also a citizen of White Earth Nation. She got her start as a community organizer, organizing urban indigenous community, including for U.S. Senator Paul Wellstone's 2002 re-election campaign. So she doesn't even live on tribal land. If she grew up in St. Louis Park, she's not on tribal land, right? An inner ring suburb of Minneapolis. So why is she organizing anything for Native Indians? She's worked for Senator Paul Wellstone in the past. That's how they all start. She became an organizer for the urban Native American community. She worked for the Minnesota Council of Churches, doing outreach between Native American families and the Minneapolis public school system. That doesn't make sense either, because usually they don't use public school. Or if it is public, it's still on tribal land. Jane says she doesn't like the wacky earrings. And Rodney thinks the picture looks like a parody. Dental says Peggy Flanagan, a.k.a. Julia Roberts at home. Golly, guys. Oh, man. So what are her accomplishments? Let's see if there are any. And she was one of 4 Native Indian women to run for that position, I guess. So she Here we go. Political positions. Flanagan is an advocate for Indigenous people's rights. While a legislator, she sponsored the creation of a task force on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Later, she sponsored a mandate for tribal consultation in state affairs. And as lieutenant governor, created the nation's first missing and murdered Indigenous relatives office. So it's all political. Chillin says, is she from the same tribe as Senator Warren? I think it, yeah, I know what you're suggesting there. It says the Ojibwe tribe, if I read that correctly. This is a load of bullshit, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to be real evil here for a second. And if anybody here who does Native Indian studies or is a Native Indian, please feel free to chime in, okay? More of what I learned being around Indigenous people living in Kansas, all right? I'm going to read this again, and I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to be unpopular. While a legislator, she sponsored the creation of a task force on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Later, she sponsored a mandate for tribal consultation, okay, and as lieutenant governor, created the nation's first missing and murdered Indigenous relatives office. That sounds great, right? Here's the problem, and this is what they'll never tell you. All those, I'm sure you've heard it before. Oh, Indigenous women, they go missing. They find them dead on the side of the road. They find them in the woods. Indigenous people are the ones responsible. They're the ones doing it. Look up any documentary on it, or watch any docudrama where they're talking about missing, exploited, or murdered Indigenous women, and you'll find something really revealing in that. They will not cooperate with law enforcement. They will not allow state police into their tribal land. They will not allow the FBI into their tribal land. They will not cooperate with any form of law enforcement. They will not cooperate with the courts. They will not answer questions. And they're the ones committing the murders. And everybody knows it. But, we need to have a task force. Oh, the government's not doing enough. The government's not being allowed to do anything. And that goes for the U.S. and Canada. And again, you can look this up for yourself. Look up any documentary on it. Look up any docudrama on it. My wife watches a ton of that stuff. We offered them federal investigators. They wouldn't let them into the tribal land. We tried to get to them to talk to the state police. They wouldn't speak to them. The tribal sheriff told them to leave. Tribal sheriff says that no one will answer any of his questions. You think someone's sneaking into tribal lands and doing this? Making these women disappear? They're the ones doing it. They're the ones doing it. Jane says they heard that before about reservations and restrictions. And Alexander is here from Wisconsin. Let me catch up a couple of comments. Monkey says, yeah, and the tribal lands are like their own enclave country. Exactly. They can get away with a lot in there because the government doesn't have very much overreach into those lands. Monkey said, went to a casino back in California. You had to be 21 to enter. Went to the tribal land in Southern California, had to be 18. And Dental says it said that skinwalkers gain their ability to shapeshift through human sacrifice. As I catch up a couple of comments there. And Jane says, ever see the TV show Big Skies and Burn Notice? A few years old, but good shows. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with it. But yeah, they're the ones doing it. They're the ones doing it. Whether it's within their own tribe or it's a neighboring tribe. Because again, they don't get along. So she advocated for, again, right here, missing and murdered Indigenous women and nation's first missing and murdered Indigenous relatives office. What good is it going to do if they won't talk to you and if they already know who's responsible? What good are those offices going to do except to make the local government look even more inept because nothing is getting accomplished? Of course, nothing's getting accomplished. She's also a huge supporter of transgender rights and gender affirming care to youth. You all know what that means. We don't even have to go down that bunny trail. Jane says Big Skies is info on reservations, missing women, and burn notices about spy for the U.S. who got fired. Okay. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with them. I'm not that familiar with those. Speaking of missing exploited women. And let me see. Chillin says that they need money for an empty office. Basically, it's just redirecting tax money. It's a waste. It's a waste. If they're not going to talk to anyone and they're not going to cooperate, even with their own reservation authorities, you're not going to get anything done. How? But then they're mad at everybody. What do you want? What the hell do you want? And Tuck says the tribes behave like street gangs. Yeah, pretty much, except that the street gangs are subject to local authorities, and they're not as long as they stay on the reservation, unless they do something outside the reservation and then hide there. And at some point, state police or FBI are going to have to go in if they can find anybody. It's a disaster. It's a mess. But speaking of oppression, while everybody in the U.S. thinks women are so oppressed here, try doing it somewhere else. Here is Jazeera, if I pronounce that correctly, foreign magazine. Taliban criminalizes the sights and sounds of women. That's right. You better buckle down. Lady, I can see your feet. Although she did henna her feet, though. I can see that she has put henna on her feet. But Taliban, further restrictions. Way to go, Biden. Not 24 hours after pulling the military out, that whole country fell apart after all those years and all those lives lost investing in Afghanistan. On Sunday, the United Nations condemned new laws enacted by Afghanistan's Ministry of Vice and Virtue that prohibit the display of women's faces and bodies in public, and said that even the sound of a female voice outside of their home constitutes a moral violations and can be grounds for arrest. Thank you, Biden. Oh, but hey, the United Nations officially condemned it. Thank God. Thank God they officially condemned it on paper. I was worried nothing was going to be done about this. Since 2022, when Biden sold out America, Afghan women have been barred from education beyond the 6th grade. Well, that's not hurting them. They're not learning nothing anyway. And from employment outside of the home, they are now forbidden from singing, reciting, and reading aloud in public. They are also not allowed to laugh very loud, and their laughter should not be heard by men. Women cannot look at men they are not related to by blood or marriage, and vice versa. So dudes, no looking at those burqas either. As for men, they must grow beards, eschew Western dress and hairstyles, and pray and observe religious fasts. Okay, grow that beard, folks. Breaking these rules may result in warnings, confiscation of property, or detention for up to 3 days. The ministry has already detained thousands for similar violations, but the new codification represents a further crackdown that women say has made life in the country completely intolerable. Rosa Otunbieva, the UN's envoy to Afghanistan, said it represents a distressing vision for the country's future. In response, Vice and Virtue Minister Mohammed Khalid Hanafi claims that the regulations protect women's rights under Islamic law. We'll be watching whether Otunbieva's report to the UN scheduled for September 18th makes any difference, and whether the rest of the international community will join in the condemnation through serious action to help Afghan women and girls is unlikely. Or, excuse me, though serious action is unlikely. At least they recognize that. No, it's very unlikely that any sanctions or threats or condemnation from any country is going to make a damn bit of difference. It never has, and it never will, unless you want to invade Afghanistan again, and good luck with that. You want to rule over a rock pile, which is most of Afghanistan. They've got some forests, believe it. But yeah, mostly it's dust and rocks. You knock yourself out. You waste your money. Monkey says, hey, the West is so worrying about Christianity while this happens. Exactly. And you know what? People who protest it, they're not going to go over there and do it. They're not going to go over there and do it. We'll sit out here and wave the flag. We'll burn the American flag and put on a Shema. Oh, we are all Hamas. That fits right in with their values. Does that upset you? With your blue hair and your 8 nose rings? If you have a nose, if you haven't removed it, you've seen that, haven't you? That's a fashion trend. Not very many people are doing it, but I've seen people with no noses. It's been surgically removed. I've seen people with no ears. It's a hole. The ear is gone, removed. Again, not a lot of people are doing that, but how is this a fashion trend? What kind of plastic surgeon or cosmetic surgeon ethically does surgeries like that on people? Who does that? Rodney says, weird that leftists are always screaming about the oppression of women, yet unfailingly support Islam. Yeah, because that's the purest form of it right there. They're following the Quran. That's what it looks like. While you talk about how beautiful it is, okay. Have you ever read that thing? It's nuts. Angels with wings 1,000 feet wide, with an eyeball on every feather, sucking the tongues of prophets. I'm not kidding. Look that stuff up. Jane says, I heard it's so sad. 12 years old or no education. I read the book called The Box. U.S. Law, no women could talk more than 100 words a day or got electric shock by a bracelet. Interesting. Nature Nerd says Afghanistan has authoritarian rules. 20 years of fighting for democracy for nothing. Well, I mean, that was the big lie. That was the big lie that, you know, every time we get into a confrontation with any country, we're just trying to bring democracy to the world. We don't have it here. We don't really have it here. Shut up. And Jane says, no noses or ears. I saw a girl had pink rhinestones on her teeth. Look up. You can go to Google Images or Bing Images or whatever the hell service you got, and you can look that up. Removed ears or removed nose. You'll find it. You'll find pictures of people that look like that. That is becoming a thing. Also, the scarring, prominent scars is what they call it. You can look that up, where people have a professional, like a tattoo artist, cut them, usually on their face, so that they have a deep scar. And that's getting to be a thing, along with eyeball tattoos, where they color the white parts of the eyes, which can cause blindness, by the way. But yeah, all those body modifications. And I'm like, who ethically in their right mind does things like this for people? Even breast implants. I mean, the only reason I could even think of for legitimately giving somebody a breast implant is if they had a mastectomy and they wanted to rebuild a normal looking breast. I could, what can I say about that? I don't know what it feels like to have a piece of you cut away like that. You know what I mean? How that must feel. Let the woman have it. But most of the time, these enormous breasts and these enormous fake butts and pectoral and bicep implants on dudes and stuff, that's just bad ethics in the medical community, and it shouldn't be done. Dental says, I'm old enough to remember when body modification was a mark of the modern primitive philosophy. Now it's a mark of transhumanism, and the times are changing. Exactly. Raccoon says, I remember when branding was a thing in the 90s. Yeah, I remember that too. A lot of college fraternities used to do that. Michael Jordan's got a brand. I think it's on his calf, right, or his leg, the side of his leg. And it's his alma mater's moniker. But as we move around here, but yeah, the body modifications. Dental says scarification. Okay, there you go. Scarification was done as a status symbol of initiation into animist traditions of the old world, anthropologically speaking. There you go. There you go. But that's getting to be a thing now again. And I just, I don't agree with any of it. Excessive piercings, deliberate scarring, excessive tattoos. I mean, if you got a couple of tattoos, you know, whatever. It's too much. It's getting to be too much. And Brian says, I can't stand when women have no modesty. Don't even get me started. Especially when they don't have the bodies for it even. They're dressed, they look like a dump truck, and they want to wear a skirt that's so high and underwear that is so tight, you can count the rings and figure out how old they are. As we move around here, a little consumer warning about Walmart, where you will probably see people like that. You will probably see people, women who have no modesty and no business dressing the way they do. I mean, at least if you have the body for it, but you should still do that more privately. More privately. I don't want to see you walking around in the street looking that way, especially young people. Oh man, it really bothers me when I see teenage girls or adolescent girls walking around looking like they're at the strip club. It's like, God, just stop. Rodney says body modification goes under the banner of weird shit. No kidding. And Jane says, I learned so much here. I subbed on Woo Weapons of Opportunity. A lot of women in Europe can't have guns, so make stuff like ammonia and peppermint oil in a spray bottle, locks and chains. Okay, they're talking about another page there. But USA Today article, Great Value apple juice, and Great Value, of course, is Walmart's private brand. Stores are voluntarily recalling their apple juice because of arsenic poisoning. It says a voluntary recall of the 8-ounce Great Value juice sold at Walmart stores in a 6-pack with PET plastic bottles has been issued according to U.S. Food and Drug Administration. And the recall number, they got the recall number there, issued on August 15th. The federal agency said the apple juice contains inorganic arsenic above the action levels set in the industry guidance. So another Walmart recall for, only this time it's for arsenic and not for lead. Not for lead. And you can find, you know how you can avoid a lot of lead if you buy anything Great Value is if it's made in, if it's imported from like Thailand. Because, and I don't know how that's cheaper than buying it and canning it in the United States, but for some reason it's cheaper to can the stuff in Thailand and ship it here. But if you look at the Great Value corn, there's two. And the label is the same, but on the back the warning is different. And one says may contain traces of lead, and those are manufactured in Thailand. Anyway, back to the article. It says the FDA says the current research indicates the inorganic arsenic is more dangerous than organic arsenic. The federal agency also says the long-term exposure in adults to inorganic arsenic has been affiliated with skin disorders, increased risks of skin, bladder, and lung cancer, and cardiovascular disease. Short-term exposure to inorganic arsenic can cause nausea, vomiting, bruising, and numbness or burning sensations in the hands and feet. So, yeah, watch out for Great Value apple juice. No sugar added, though. No sugar added. Oh, my God. Let's see here. Monkey says, where are we? There's a website dedicated to the people of Walmart, and it's a lot of bimbos, unusual clothing styles. I remember people of Walmart. I've seen that that website. I've seen that website. Somebody, he goes around, he just takes random photos or accepts photos randomly from Walmart. You see a lot of weird crap in there, though. A lot of weird crap in there. Dental says, I used to frequent the people of Walmart website, although English.com was a funny one. But yeah, that can get toxic after a while, though. That can get toxic after a while because you're overexposed to like the lowest denomination of humanity. Along with this warning, I wanted to warn you about something else. That's erythritol. Does anybody know what erythritol is? Do you know what erythritol is? And Dragon says, problem is by the time these recalls come out, the food items will have already been consumed. That is true. That is true. But you just got to be careful. You got to be discerning. And this comes from Meritage Medical Network is where I'm reading this off of. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of erythritol. Odds are, though, it's in something that you're eating. And I'm just throwing it out there. Helter says a common artificial sweetener. Yeah, it's billed as, and Tuck says erythritol. It's billed as a natural sweetener. They call it a natural sweetener. I beg to differ. And Helter says levels are typically more than 1,000-fold greater than levels found naturally in foods. Yeah, because it does occur naturally. Monkey says it's in energy drinks. It's in more and more stuff, okay? It does occur naturally, but they produce it into this white crystal like you see here in the picture through an unnatural process. And they use it as a sweetener, and they bill it as a natural sweetener because it can be found naturally. But it's anything but. All right, and it tells you right there, erythritol is an artificial sweetener commonly used in low sugar and sugar-free foods designed to replace sugar and calories to create diet-friendly results. Powdered erythritol sweeteners bake in a way almost identical to sugar and made by combining and fermenting certain natural sugars. But and it is found naturally in a lot of fruits and vegetables, but primarily where they get erythritol, or they get the material for erythritol, is from corn. They get it from corn, okay? And it's a type of sugar alcohol, but they deliberately ferment it and concentrate it, and that's what erythritol is. And there are some warnings with this. Erythritol, as well as other types of sugar alcohols, other artificial sweeteners, result in more water in the intestines, causing diarrhea, nausea, and headaches. The latter symptom is often a result of excess diarrhea because the body is dehydrated. And the laxative effect in the substance is known for its true of all sugar alcohols. I know I read that wrong. It says studies find consuming about half a gram of the sweetener per pound of body weight is safe and may not result in side effect issues. Generally, you have to consume more than 18 grams to experience problem. However, no two human bodies are alike, blah, blah, blah. Basically, the problem here is that however much you're supposed to consume in a day, your average person is probably going to eat 2, 3, 4 times that much. You'll find this a lot in any kind of keto product, keto-friendly foods. A lot of that is in there. They're putting it in ice cream now. I know, Halo Top uses this instead of sugar. And each product is basing what they consider to be a serving as to how much of this you can consume. But if you're eating multiple products with this in it, then you're getting dangerous levels. And what this article doesn't tell you here is that it's also been linked now with the possibility of heart attack and stroke. Alexander says, I never shop at Walmart anyways. And Cyberjack says, that's so nuts. And Monkey says, stevia is safer. And yeah, well, I mean, how is the stevia extracted? I haven't read up on the stevia, but erythritol is technically a natural substance too. How safe is it? Now, I have tasted erythritol in products. I don't know if anyone else has tasted it. I can detect an artificial sweetener immediately. If I eat something and it's got an artificial sweetener, I'm like, blah, because I don't eat like that, so my body naturally rejects it when I taste it. And I can't stand the flavor or the aftertaste. It's just, you get a chill from it. I do. The erythritol, the aftertaste from that stuff, it'll stay with you all day. You can't get rid of it. You can't rinse it out of your mouth. You can't eat something else behind it. You can't brush your teeth. It sticks. There's something about it. It sticks with you. At least that was my personal experience with it. And I'm like, God, please don't eat that stuff. I'm just throwing it out there. As always, read your labels. If you don't know what something is, look it up. Odds are you don't want to eat it. Odds are you don't want to eat it. And Jane says, Halo ice cream is nasty. Well, now you know why. Now you know why, because it's been flavored with erythritol. If you go pick up a Halo ice cream, and you read it, it's gonna have erythritol as one of the main ingredients. And yeah, you should avoid anything unnatural as much as possible. And nature says, ironically, sugar is healthier than most artificial sweeteners. That's correct. A lot of people who have, especially diabetes, they'll drink diet soda, they'll eat stuff with artificial sweetener. It causes more problems than the sugar does. It causes more health problems in the long run than sugar does. But, what do I know? Go ahead and poison yourself. I found this article very interesting, and this is a Business Insider article, okay? And they're giving you an example here of a Gen Xer. A Gen Xer with a six-figure salary and over $315,000 in debt can't afford a home. Quote, this country has failed us. I thought this was fascinating, okay? So Shuran Tajani, 46, is struggling to manage her student loans and credit card debt. You're 46 and you haven't paid off your student loans yet and you have a six-figure salary? There's your first problem. Despite earning six figures as a nurse, she's unable to afford home ownership. She's hopeful the Save Student Loan Repayment Plan will go through to give her lower payments. Shuran Tajani, 46, went back to school in 2011 to get her nursing degree, and she's been practicing in the field ever since. Okay, so she's been practicing for almost 12 years. But despite having multiple degrees, achieving home ownership is out of reach due to the over $315,000 in debt she carries from her student loan and credit cards. Tajani moved from Pakistan to the U.S. when she was 10. Her parents wanted her to have the opportunity to benefit from the higher education, blah, blah, blah. She decided to become a nurse in 2009. That's where most of her student loans come from. And while she's now earning a six-figure salary, according to documents reviewed by BI, it's not enough to pay off the balance alongside other expenses like rent. She's even picked up a second job outside her full-time nursing career to help make ends meet, meaning she now works 6 days a week. How much is the student loan? She's only making $250 in monthly payments. So her student loan is $250 a month. How much is the total amount? It doesn't say. I want to know how much of this is student loans and how much of it is the credit card debt, number one. Number two, I want to know how much of the student loans were actually necessary because, when you get those Pell Grants, some of it is for the school and books and some of it is for living expenses. Did she take out the full grant with all living expenses added on that sometimes can be 2 and 3 times as much as you actually need? How much of a grant, how big was the grant she took, and did she need to take all of that? I want to know what her spending habits are, that she's $315,000 in debt. And Jane says she has a spending money problem. Exactly. Nature Nerd says if I made $315,000, I'd be able to buy a house in a few years. Yeah, she's earning a six-figure salary. She's earning a six-figure salary. Her problem is money management, not the student loans, like the direction they're going in here. And she's only paying, the article revealed, $250 a month on her student loan. And she's trying to negotiate paying less and has not been able to get this paid off since 2011. So for the last 13 years, she has not been able to pay this off despite earning a six-figure salary. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it does not specify, and I was hoping the article would, but I don't see it in here anywhere. How much of this is student debt and how much of this is on those credit cards? What kind of lifestyle is this living? What kind of lifestyle is this woman living? Is she balling out of control here? I don't understand that. It's because student loans need to be forgiven. That's the problem. And of course, Business Insider is backing up that idea. And Tuck says she's a Yas queen. She had to live just a hair above her means. She's more than a hair above. Dragon says that's her fault. She got an addiction to material stuff, and yet she wants the taxpayers to bail her out of her poor decisions. There you go. Tuck says there's huge holes in her story. Raccoon says she's waiting for Biden to wipe her debt. Get in line. Yeah, I know, but the Biden administration would wipe out her debt, especially since she's in nursing. She's in nursing. They would wipe out her debt. She would be eligible under their format, and your tax dollars would pay for her. And then she wouldn't have to worry about that. And she could go on getting her hair and nails done and eating Uber every night. And, whatever else, God knows, she's spending her money on. It doesn't make any sense that hasn't been long since paid off. And her loan is only $250 a month. Currently. It said previously it was $600 a month. And she renegotiated it to $250 a month. So she still can't even make that payment. And Jane says, I bet she has an expensive car. Yeah. This is the problem. These are the people that want you to pay off their student loan. Years later, 13 years after she enrolled in school. 13 years after she enrolled. So you figure at least 2 years, maybe, in school. Maybe 2 years, nursing degrees. Basic, just to get working. Could have already been paying that off. Probably, did her Pell Grants, got living expenses grants on top of it, spent it because she didn't need it, wasted the money, wasted the opportunity. Alexander says, yeah, that's what happens when you spend $10,000 on a useless degree that no employer is looking for. Well, in her case, her degree was useful. If she's working in the nursing field, especially if she's earning a six-figure salary, but she's not savvy with her money. She's not a good steward of the money or the loan, but she wants you to foot the bill. And organizations like that Business Insider are championing that concept because it's she just can't make ends meet. I want to know how much that credit card debt is, like I said. But anyway, with that, we are at the top of the hour. So again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. And if you wanted to join the live portion, if you are listening somewhere else, it is Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You can find me there. You can find me on Fistful of Radio as well as X at Coffee Talk Chat. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation.